All right, everyone. Welcome to the Sunday Super Chat show featuring a little bit of news articles actually here. There's a link in the description to a Bitchute video, an exclusive that I did this morning actually. Getting on towards 50 million views on Bitchute. It'll probably happen tomorrow. If not, then probably overnight into the next day. So yes, 50 million views on Bitchute. We're also very, very close to getting 82,000 subscribers on Rumble. So Clankdom is definitely expanding. That was the first thing that I wanted to mention. There's a pinned comment, if you're watching this live stream on YouTube, by the way, since we're going to be talking a little bit about critical race theory and Beto O'Rourke in Texas, again, the subject of that exclusive video, I figured it was prudent to put that into the chat there. It's pinned. You should get a copy because critical race theory, I guess, will be back in the news at least a little bit, pertinent to the Texas gubernatorial race, which of course is Greg Abbott's to lose. He's got the incumbency. He's 7 or 8 points ahead in the aggregate. I'll get into a little bit more of that. We'll also be doing the super chats, of course. So it's excellent. But let me first check. Make sure that I'm live on Rumble because sometimes there's a delay or sometimes I put in the stream key wrong. Again, I'm hoping that they'll fix their chat system at some point. That is probably, for people that are streaming, probably the only real detriment to using Rumble, actually, at the moment. And we are indeed live. Morbidly obese on Rumble. I'm not actually fat. Interesting. But are you beastly? Unfortunately. Just a minute here. Let me get everything organized first. But yeah, make sure to get a copy of Critical Race Theory Debunked. It's a very, very high seller on Amazon. Actually, of all of the works that I've written myself, I think that one is second only to Occult Memetics. And Occult Memetics has been up there for, 5 or 6 years now. So it's been good times. We'll get into a little bit of Beto here, though. We'll get into him first. I did do a video again, link in the description, etc., to the Bitchute video that I did. Again, 50 million views very soon. So you can help out by watching the video. It's interesting. Beto O'Rourke has done several 180s with regards to his gubernatorial campaign. He's the kind of politician who is, I think he's stuck in the 2000s, and he's hoping that there isn't a digital paper trail, so to speak, linking him to his past views. He's done a 180 on the border. He's done a 180 or nearly a 180 on guns. He did at least a 90 or a 120 on those. Now, critical race theory, he was asked whether he supported critical race theory being taught in schools. Now, whether or not he cares about this, I think, is up in the air. My own personal opinion is he's an empty suit politician. He doesn't really care about the issue. But when queried, he said, no, I don't really think it should be taught in schools. This reminds me again of John Kerry. I remember back in the 2004 election, back in the era of primitive flash and stuff, there was actually like a little thing. I can't remember what site it was on. It was like the presidential dance-off. And so there was Bush and John Kerry, and there were different like dance moves they could do. And one for John Kerry was the flip-flop. And of course, he would flop around on the ground like a dying fish out of water. Even looks similar, acts similar. Similar intonation, basically a John Kerry knockoff when you think of it. And of course, his real name's not Beto, it's Robert Francis. So he's being a little bit disingenuous. Fits right in with politicians, but on the state level, a little bit less than if you were running to be in DC. Funny story. Beto O'Rourke gave up a relatively safe House seat in order to seek the Senate seat against Ted Cruz and to do his presidential ambition thing. He loses both times. Now he's embarked upon a gubernatorial campaign that's equally doomed. In my opinion, there's a 99+% chance Greg Abbott holds the seat. So what does he do? He realizes, well, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if I was pushing racial justice education, it would be a virtue. Gun control was still close to a 50-50 matter, even a place like Texas. Now, though, oh, Jesus, my former opinions are dead weight. Quick, I'll do a 180 and hope nobody notices. That's basically it. Yeah, Templar Knight pointing out that Justin Bieber's wife had, I guess, a mini stroke or something like that, but I can't read the rest of your comment because, we are live on YouTube. You can look that up. Look up Justin Bieber's wife. and you'll see. It's funny. His wife has to have a stroke. I think she's in her 20s before he is relevant and in the news again. Johnny Stoffel. Most guys Brandon's age have to take a little blue pill to get this much inflation. I think he'd need more than one. His erection would be a lot more than 4 or 5 hours. Alexander Screeton. Styx, please watch the 5-hour expose on Ukraine genocide I posted on your Rumble and on your comment section. Proves Ukraine. I can't read that out because, YouTube will ban me. Literally, they've invoked their disinformation about historic events thing. I note that it doesn't apply to the 2016 election if you're a liberal politician. But yeah, you can look that up, that expose. I think it was banned on YouTube, but it is on Rumble. It is elsewhere, probably on Bitchute, probably on Odyssey. RevX, greetings, Styx. Favorite Sunday dinner recipe? We sort of, in this household, we eat what we want, so to speak. It depends, because, like, let's say one day you're like, I'm really in the mood for steak. Steak and mashed potatoes and stuff. It's a heavy meal, and you eat that. The next day, maybe you're more reluctant to have a heavy meal, and you're like, well, I think I want a nice garden salad and maybe some chicken and rice or something a little bit lighter. I like cooking Asian dishes, I think, more than anything else. I used to think that they were all complex. Actually, most of them are rather simple. I'm a Halo 123. Do you still play RuneScape? No, I don't play RuneScape anymore. I was using real-world money on it, and I was wasting time that I could have been using working. If I'm going to do any gaming, it's one, single player, and I'm just at my computer. I'm not interested in the open world thing. Neon Dystopia, tell us a joke. Joe Biden's economic policies. It's probably the funniest one, or least funny, depending on your socioeconomic class, that we have right now. Mike L2535, perennial poster here. I can smell your hair through the screen. Delightful. Oh, no, it smells like that weird purple shampoo that Liz usually uses because she's a blonde. I think it removes red tones, if I remember correctly, in the hair. And I use that. Maybe that's why the tips of my hair is more light. I don't know. I don't know these. I don't do hair care or anything like that. It's hard enough to get me to brush my hair in the morning more than for 2 seconds. Jacko Slapbass. Will we see social credit in the West? Grasshopper, we already have it. If you have opinions that are counter to the narrative, you will already be banned. Your bank may delist you, etc., etc. Unfortunately, we've China-fied things in the West. It's a whole fucking problem. Originally because of the China virus, ironically enough. Wizened Sage. If Trump were to retake the White House, would the legacy media see a resurgence in ratings? Congrats on the Styx, baby. Well, thank you for the congrats. No, they lost ratings anyway because, it's beating a dead horse. Okay, this is the 7th article today about how Donald Trump is the devil. Okay, I got it the first time. Is there any other news to talk about? The problem is that you had a border that was relatively secure, an economy that was doing relatively well, no new wars, and really they had to concoct social intrigue in order to have anything to talk about that didn't involve Trump, but they had to lay it always at his feet, even if it was like 10 steps removed from Trump in any way. It was the only thing that sold. Blood on the Blade. 20x is cringe. Back in my day, everyone said 2000x. I don't know what that means. You mean year usage? I know they call it the aughts now. Just call it the 2000s. Carter Strasser, learning about Khazarians recently. Why isn't anyone mentioning them in relation to the modern Ukraine situation? Probably because it's irrelevant. And that niche topic is beaten again like a dead horse by a small conglomerate of people who sometimes shill. They'll use it. So anyone with intelligent commentary on a foreign event will be continuously lambasted and cajoled by people who, I guess there's only one subject that they want to talk about. Opinionated junkie. Biden said the government is not spending money. Yeah. Yeah, all that infrastructure, it pays for itself, I suppose. Blood on the Blade. How are we supposed to overcome social credit? Build local communities. First, work on yourself. I'll be doing a video tomorrow with regards to authoritarians getting things backwards in terms of healthy society. First, improve yourself. Lower your materialism, learn a new skill, etc. Get together with your neighbors, your family, your friends, people that are local, not just online 1,000 miles away. Form syndicates. form local groups. You can all do some gardening, childcare, education. All of these things can be locally obtained if there's any kind of a community at all. And if you're further out, so there is no community, you're living in the hinterlands, you probably don't need much of that. There's a higher degree of self-sufficiency. Land is cheaper, water resources, etc. Make yourself unbankable. Morosi Mate sent 200 HUF, and I have no clue what kind of currency that is, but thank you anyways. No comment. Pansexual, non-binary, Orthodox Christian. Careful, you're going to trigger the Rouge types there. Putin should come out as trans. I would like to see how the media would respond. Yeah, but they would, even if it were genuine, like he's like, look, I've been cross-dressing for years, and I was confused, and I realized I'm actually a girl. Even if he did that and it was genuine, they would say, well, it's just a distraction. And it probably would be, just to be clear. David Lara, have you seen the news on the split rock in Japan said to hold the soul of a Chinese nine-tailed fox? The rock even looks like it has the face of a fox. Yes, Vulpix, quite literally. I think it's derived from that basic concept. Japanese and Eastern mythology featuring heavily in what became Pokemon, by the way, just so we're aware. Yeah, I actually saw that story, and I'm thinking, well, considering all the problems we face and the timeline we're on and all the oddities that are going on, maybe someone should glue it back together. But I guess a Buddhist priest already exorcised the rock, and it was just like a spiritual remnant, supposedly. So I guess people don't have to worry about an evil fox demon troubling mankind. We got plenty of other demons at the moment to worry about. Tim Hogan, €1, no comment, thank you. The intern of war. Electric cars don't save you money. 17 states have a tax set up on it to charge you yearly to own a car that they plan on raising. Yeah, and they should tax it because they should dissuade people from using coal-powered cars. I thought we were going to have a war on coal under Biden's mentor, Obama, but now they want cars that run partially on coal power. What gives? Matt Perkins, base 10.2. Please give us a white pill this morning. What's good? The growing season is starting, so you can plow in that extra row of beets or whatever you're growing. That's a good thing. There's crocuses and shit outside and other flowers. I saw a shit ton of moths and butterflies today on my way to the store. There's some sort of yellow moth that lives here. I'm not exactly sure what species it is, but I think there were like 15 or something just along one street that I was going down. It's full of flowers and stuff, so I'm assuming they go and play with the flowers or do whatever moths do. I don't know, do moths are they even nectar eaters? I'm not sure if 100% of them are, actually. Richard Ryan, will you support the Oranje in the World Cup? I don't pay attention to soccer, or as these Europeans call it, football. I don't care about competitive sports. Obviously, I was picked first for sports when I was in school. Actually, I was, but only for a couple of sports. If they were doing volleyball, everyone wanted me because I was the best fucking server in volleyball. If it was Foursquare, you don't really choose teams, but I was good at that too. Overall, though, do I look like I'm into sports? I guess hockey was close. When you're doing hockey indoors, like in the gym, my favorite thing to do was just slash people's ankles. You go up and you'd slash the player that's clearly better than you at hockey, although I guess I was okay, as far as scoring and shit. I didn't really want to run around. I thought it was stupid, like fucking stupid and a waste of time. So I would just slash someone's ankles and get them out of the game too. And then, of course, you don't get to play anymore, which means you get to sit down and you don't have to partake. And, you're a little kid. You're not going to get in big trouble for that. You're not going to get suspended for slashing someone. Michael LaRusso, favorite Iron Maiden album? Mine is Power Slave. I don't have a favorite. I don't really pay attention to albums most of the time. I just like, a band because I like their music. Wolf Better. What a shitty week. Thanks for the weekly clanking. How is it shitty? Economically or in your personal life? Don't answer that. It's probably both. Sorry for that. Transylvanian 90. Hey, Styx, hope you're well. What do you think is behind the weird increase in pro-Putin sentiment among the right? Are people that dichotomous to think they have no choice but to support Putin if Biden supports Ukraine? I have not noticed a significant increase in pro-Putin sentiment. The peak pro-Putin thing was meme-worthy shit a decade ago. I remember the Putin strong Obama week sort of thing that happened, late 2000s, early 2010s. That was really the pro-Putin meme period, with Putin riding the bear and Putin bare-chested and Putin doing judo and all that stupid shit. That has passed by the wayside. It seems like the vast majority of people have gravitated away from that, partially because they realize Putin's having problems conquering Ukraine right now. He's having difficulty with a nation that is considerably smaller, has considerably less manpower, and a much smaller economy. It kind of does dry up the Russian supremacist thing. That being said, I don't support demonizing Russians. I certainly don't think that regular everyday Russians should be blocked from banking, etc., because Putin's making dumb mistakes. War is won on the battlefield. The money's coming from China. If our elected leaders were really serious about draining Russia's abilities on the economic side, we'd be sanctioning China right now. But that's not happening because it's all a fucking pony show. It's all for show, dude. Alexander Screeton. I'm mirroring all the exposés I can find on Rumble. Channel name Itachi Revived. The 5-hour expose is already mirrored. Thank you, Styx, for the help. Yes, you can go and check that out and many other things on Rumble, where we are approaching 82,000 subscribers and we are just shy of 50 million views on Bitchute. Also just hit 61,000 subscribers on Odyssey the other day. Clankdom is rising everywhere except for the site that I put 10 years of effort into, of course. Adherent of Lady Columbia. Styx, how much longer do you suspect the woke globalist bureaucratic state era will last? It seems every year the stress and BS continuously compound. There's already a huge backlash against it. In the US, you have to understand that most of that abuse comes from the state. It doesn't come from the federal government. That's why when people blame Trump for lockdowns causing inflation, they're nuts. Even Biden's not to blame for that. The only thing you can blame on him is the fact that he encouraged it as opposed to Trump discouraging it. All other things equal, there was no compulsion involved except with the OSHA mandate attempt that got shot down. Rob S., are there any occult works on the idea of the world being a simulation? Mainly the works that I refer to are at least 70, 80 years old. I don't think simulation theory was really a facet of early 20th, late 19th century occultism. Although our founders discussed aliens on a regular basis, they clearly thought about the possibility of influence there. Now, Dirty Dexter B on Twitch. I haven't seen an increase in pro-Putin anything at all. Just more people who are looking into truth and don't want to support neo-Nazis. See, why would I care if the Ukrainians were Nazis? I don't care if every Ukrainian has a swastika and a picture of Hitler in their home. They still have the right to sovereignty, to self-determination. I oppose the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You don't have to like the actions of the Ukrainian government in the corrupt sense, not just in the East, but in the fiscal sense. Zelensky is a corrupt individual. He's like a miniaturized Putin. But he didn't invade Russia. He didn't say, hey, you know what I'm going to do today? I think that I'm going to bomb Belarus. Yeah, I don't care if they're Nazis. It's just like Venezuela's full of communists. I don't want to go to war with them either. And communists are worse. Tim Hogan. DeSantis is the most presidential of all nominees. No, I would say Trump is. He's got on-the-job experience. We see what he did, and it was generally good. DeSantis is untested in that capacity. However, if Trump runs, I support him. If he steps back or dies before the 24 election, yes, I'd support DeSantis if he runs. I would also support Rand Paul preferentially. If it was up to me on the two of them, I would vote for Rand Paul over Rob DeSantis. But yeah, I'd vote for him. I'd be comfortable casting my ballot for DeSantis, knowing again, like Trump, he would be a mild reformer. People expecting him to be God King and solve all the problems. That doesn't happen at the executive level. Even if you give them a friendly legislature and friendly SCOTUS and everything else, they are not invulnerable. They can't do everything. Election after election, everyone does the cult of personality thing and says, well, my candidate's going to make gold rain from the sky. I warned you that Trump couldn't do that, but he got a lot accomplished considering all the obstruction he faced. Inquisitor Jack. Hey, Styx, would you be willing to do a live stream with a Norwegian YouTuber, Archcast? He's in your time zone and would like to speak with you. He can contact me on Twitter if he would like to do that. It's easier if I'm doing it with someone close to the time zone. However, I would say because we have a pregnancy right now, Liz is pregnant, I don't really want to do the conversational live stream thing. It's impossible for me to set up scheduling for that. With this, it's easy. There's no set time of day that I have to do my Sunday Q&A stream. And I can always do an impromptu, like an evening stream. Biden's going to rant and prattle for 30 minutes. Okay, that's fine. Generally, though, I have taken a hiatus from making appearances with others for the immediate future. Unless it was really, really important, like some massive news happens and I get contacted by someone with firsthand knowledge of it, I might make an exception. But for just general conversation right now, again, I'm on hiatus from that. I have more important things to do, namely awaiting a kleine Maisha. The Grizzly, do you think a Democrat dark horse could work against Trump in 24, or do you think that the party will have suffered too much damage from their toxic policies? Do you think anyone could beat Trump? I think you'd have to look for someone waiting in the wings who has opposed their own party's policies, like a Joe Manchin, ironically. Joe Manchin would probably be one of the only Democrats that could actually pull it off in 24, which means he may actually be crazy enough to run. Without the blessing of the left wing of his own party, he could reform the Democrats. And don't count Manchin out. It is possible. Would I vote for him? No, because he's a standard liberal who is right on a handful of issues. CRT and stuff, but he's from West Virginia. He was a popular governor. He became a senator based on the fact that he'd been gubernatorial. He probably does have presidential ambitions. When you move from executive to Senate, that's pretty telling. A lot of people do that as a prelude to the presidency. If Trump runs, I think Joe Manchin would not bother to run against him. He's looking at the Democratic Party and saying, okay, fuck yourself in the ass. Give me more reasons to run in the future. He's only in his 50s. He's not an old dude. He has plenty of time. He faces virtually no challenge to re-election. He should sit it out for another few years, wait until after what is likely to be a Republican term after 24, and hope they screw up. If it's Trump, there'll be a non-incumbent presidential race. Perfect time to run. If Trump doesn't run, let's say Ted Cruz gets in there. Well, he'll fuck up probably. Well, Manchin says, well, I opposed Biden admin's excesses. I've opposed this admin's excesses. I'm the leader that you want. You could do worse. I wouldn't vote for him necessarily for that position, but yeah, you could do worse. Viking Woman 1988. Have you heard of Crestone, Colorado? This town is open to all faiths, and I want to set up a temple to the worship of Kek. Can I dream? Yeah, you can set up a little frog, altar or something on the edge of town. Josh, this series Weekend at Biden sucks. Transylvania 90. As a follow-up, why are many on the right great at seeing the obvious fake propaganda here, calling them the Nazis? But when Putin does it, they trust it without question and fail to see historical context. Again, I wouldn't say that's many people on the right. I wouldn't say that's many people in general. In fact, I wouldn't even say that it's necessarily many Russians. There's propaganda upon propaganda. The casting off of the right as being easily fooled by that kind of line because of some sort of Putin worship is not something that I myself have seen. I use sites like 4chan, and when people are anonymously posting, the truth comes through more. You can get a better pulse of the general population's views in that sort of anonymous setting because people are more comfortable with saying what they really mean. I don't see a lot of pro-Putin rhetoric. I see stale memes, and then I see people that by and large, they're just questioning NATO or Ukraine's line and saying, look, there are inconsistencies here, which there can be, but that doesn't make them pro-Putin. And so I think that that's basically a storm in a teacup kind of situation. And it's being used, by the way, promulgating that particular belief is a bad idea. It's being used by big tech to censor people right now. YouTube is banning people for questioning even components of the Ukraine war situation, even if they support Ukraine. But they say, well, yeah, but this particular event, I'm questioning whether it happened. You're not allowed to do that because of fear of Russians. Russians have become the new unvaccinated, so to speak. The average Russian is not, I think, given over to warmongering any more than the average person in any other country. It would be an anomaly, pardon the pun, if they were. F YouTube 10.5. Today I turned 21. Give me a spoon clank, Styx, but I have no spoon, I'm sad to say. And give you a pen clank and take a slurp of my lime drink. With the Bitchute cup. 50 million views coming up soon, by the way. Also, pin comment. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, with a link to the anti-critical race theory booklet that I wrote. Keep in mind that Beto O'Rourke has now come out against critical race theory. He's not being genuine. He's doing it for political reasons, but it's just so hilarious. Watching him wriggle himself around like a pretzel, isn't that the best? He's literally like a slightly younger John Kerry. Just as boring, just as, well, I don't think John Kerry was midlife crisis mode when he was running, but he wasn't that old. He wasn't much older than Bush, I think. Wasn't he like 60? By presidential standards, that's a spring chicken these days. Elmar001, when all this shit settles down, would love to see some cooking videos again. I'd like to do that, but I'd like to have a better recording setup because, you know, I want to do actual editing if I'm doing a cooking video. Because otherwise people complain. I think people that are into food, they are much more relentless and unforgiving than people in politics. I'll get insulted more. If I make a hamburger, I'll have so many more insults and they'll be so much more vicious than if I'm making a video on my opinion about even a sensitive political issue. I noticed this. I made half a dozen cooking videos. Oh my God, you cooked the steak wrong. You didn't let it rest long enough. Oh my God, you used too much oil. You used too much oil when you fried the plantains. I've got people that know nothing about African cooking trying to lecture me on plantains. Bitch, I learned from someone from Africa. Don't try to talk down to me on the plantains. Of course they're greasy. It's the whole point. They're delicious. Fat Planet. How much money do we need to super chat for you to shave your head? I would need about $1 million. If you can raise $1 million, I'll shave my head and donate it to a cancer awareness fund or something. I'd do that. Because I'd lose money. Without the hair, if I'm bald, I'm going to pull half as far as my audience. So I'll need a big payoff up front. Stephen Nizek. Jussie Smollett has been found guilty of committing a hate crime against Jussie Smollett. Is this proof that Chicago is safely no longer MAGA country? Yes, Jussie Smollett got 150 days in jail. He should have gotten more. I personally believe that if you should claim that a crime has been committed, by the way, I was wrong on Joe Manchin. He's actually an old man, but he looks all right for his age, kind of with it. If you, for instance, you say I was raped, and it's proven that that didn't happen, the encounter was recorded or whatever, you should be given the same sentence as though the crime had been committed. But you should be the one charged. False charges of that kind, they gobble up police resources, legal resources. They can ruin lives. They should be punished much more severely. Bara7331, Joe Manchin is 74. Yes, I was wrong. I thought that he was younger. He looks, I mean, his plastic surgery, unlike Pelosi's, actually worked, I suppose. But he can still run. Apparently, age is no impediment anymore. They still want Joe Biden, who would be 81 at the time, to run for re-election. So we've crossed the Rubicon on ageism, so-called. Overwharf. Styx, I'm currently digging your demonology collection. Any recommendations of follow-up reads? I'm trying to find the name of an entity that spooked me as a child. You'll want the Ars Goetia, and or the Lesser Key of Solomon, which I compiled, and there are different compilations. And depending on the compilation, it has 4 or 5 books in it. You should just get the Lesser Key of Solomon. Probably the Red Dragon, the Grand Grimoire. That's a good one. I'm going to be remaking my version, so there are probably others that are more sophisticated, even though I think mine's still the cheapest on Amazon. Do not fret, $2. No comment, thank you. The Grizzly, here's just a for fun occult question. If you worship any god of the Cthulhu mythos, which would it be and why? Me, I've always been a fan of Azathoth, but could get behind Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep if pressed. Well, most of them are nuts, so I don't think that I'd worship any of them. That would be slightly self-destructive. Green Nonja, keep up the good work, Styx. Did you hear about this? Biden-Harris administration sets offshore energy records with $4.37 billion in winning bids for wind sale. That's just for leasing land. No, I didn't. Do you mean offshore wind? That's actually an idea that works much better than wind from hillsides and stuff. The Dutch have windmills all over the coast, and it actually works. More than you can say for those little windmills that they put up outside farms and shit in the United States. Mr. Wonderful, as always, the average citizenry suffers the consequences, but Putin has been pushed into this NATO, is surrounding him, and what is he to do? JFK anyone? Well, I mean, not invading Ukraine would have been a good idea because then you wouldn't have the sanctions. The idea that he was pushed into it by NATO expansionism makes no sense. NATO already expanded in the mid-2000s and Putin did nothing. And he's already on the border of several NATO states. If you move into Ukraine and annex it or whatever, you're closer to even more NATO states. You just happen to have a grain belt with a lot of warm water portage. That's what Putin wants. He wants the ports and he wants the food. That's all he needs. He doesn't give a shit about the Ukrainian people being denazified or any of this horse shit. Rob S., where should I start with your occult work? I've recently become interested after seeing your work on Amazon after purchasing your CRT book. Thanks. Yes, everyone, get the critical race theory debunked. Pinned comment if you're watching the YouTube live chat. I would say if you go to my books blogs, the Tarl Warwick books blogs, I did a series of compilations, most of which are under my works. I did herbalism, one on like herbal medicine and stuff like that. There's one on folklore. There's one on black magic, actually, that's sort of a companion to the demonology one. The demonology one was more academic, and I don't know if you've read that one. The black magic one is more like grimoires, actual spells and stuff. There are other compilations, too. I've done 8 of them. I've got 3 more planned, along with re-editing virtually all of my pre-existing works. Chatty Factory on YouTube. You're not paying me, but I'll read it out anyway. How much to get you to debate someone on the morality of abortion? Why are you having a kid, Styx? I thought you were all about abortion. Lol, this loser thinks that anon 4chan posts are the truth. Anonymous posting is going to approximate truth more than non-anonymous posting because people will be more comfortable with posting their real views. They will hold back if they are personally identifiable because we have cancel culture. That's all. And as far as abortion, it's not about the morality. To me, it's about the state function and whether or not the state has the right to determine that for a female individual. Generally, in many cases, I'm uncomfortable with the state having that kind of power over medical decision-making. That's it. It's not really about morality. It's about civics for me. The Everyday Witch. It will take some time for the USA to recover from Joe Tato, but we will recover. Also, what are your views on the laws of attraction? Thank you. I believe in the laws of attraction to an extent, and the laws of contamination as well, of course. I would like to disagree with you with regards to the USA recovering. I think that it will recover fairly quickly once Biden and his ilk are scooted aside. We can limit the damage after the midterms if we defang his government through legislative takeover, SCOTUS decisions, and then in 24, kick him out, get someone sane in there. I think they can reverse much of what Biden's doing quickly because he's doing it through executive action. This is why a lot of what the good that Trump did, because he was being obstructed, a lot of the good that he did was through executive action. Well, I mean, the next executive comes along and just countermands it with a new executive order. It'd take an afternoon for half the damage that he's done. Someone from Africa. Beach, Styx, learn from me. Do not fret. A kakistocracy is a government by the least suitable or competent citizens of a state that is always the end game of democracy. Yeah, the least competent people do run a bunch of the bureaus, that's for sure. Transylvania 90. Yeah, 1941 called it, wants its mass ethnic hysteria back. They're firing Russian musicians in Montreal and New York just for their nationality because they didn't denounce Vlad loudly enough. Dismaying. Yeah, it's a little bit like what Takei actually wants, which is the internment of people on an ethnic basis. They might even try to bring that back. Well, we think that you're a threat to the state. You know, we've got this random intel from someone on Reddit that says that you might be a spy for the Russians. You have to go back, even if you were born in the United States. Don't think it can't happen. I'm sure people in the early 40s didn't think it could either. Inquisitor Jack, I don't have to like Russia to know my own government hates me, abuses me constantly, and wants me enslaved or dead. Demolish the bureaucracy. Agreed. Parlock 480, how bad do you think things will be in the U.S. in 6 months? It really does depend, but that'll be in the lead up to the midterm. So you might see the pressure eased back because they want the Democrats to stay in power. So they'll try, probably for the next few months, things will be terrible. And then they'll do everything they can to try to repair the damage they themselves have done. And then Biden will take credit for recovery for job losses he encouraged to occur in the first place, like he has before. Michael Krasnowski, what's your summer gas price prediction in USA? Well, I mean, I'm in the Netherlands right now, but I think in Vermont the average is like $4.30 a gallon. This is about the mean, median, and mode almost. So expensive, very expensive. The good stuff. Do you think Russia has enough gold to prevent the ruble from collapsing? Pegging your currency to gold is not usually a good idea. So not enough and too much. Tom McMorrow, congratulations to you both on the impending arrival of Styxhexenhammer. God fucking speed. Seeing sights. What do you accept from Rudolf Steiner? Well, anthroposophy is a good idea overall. The concept of an out-of-state schooling system, although there are complaints about it, is a good idea. He basically adapted theosophy and made it more pragmatic, more socially reformist, etc. That's a big part of what he did. In that sense, I think theosophy is wiser than most spiritual paths, even if I disagree with elements of it. Blood on the Blade. Will 2022, 2024 fortification cause revolt? No, because a bunch of states and municipalities have already defortified. This is something the Black Pillars won't admit to you because they want you to donate to whatever their webpage is. Defortification has already occurred in most of the vulnerable areas that could be fortified as far as the next elections. This is something that the lamestream I don't think expected to happen so quickly. That's why they're attacking populism. That's why they're trying to cast people off as you're a Russian shill, you're an extremist, etc., to get them canceled because it's working too well. The displacement of the old establishment is already well underway. Mr. Wonderful, Putin drew a line in the sand with Ukraine in regards to joining NATO. Unlike Obama, a line in the sand actually means something to him. Yeah, but here's the question. If the whole thing is about sovereignty and territorial integrity, why would you care if they joined NATO unless you were worried about NATO? Like, if NATO has not directly threatened you, if you yourself, and Putin took up this line for the better part of a decade, have said, we're not a competitor or anything to the West, we want a world of peace and stuff. If that's true, why would you worry about Ukraine joining NATO? And how does it change the strategic situation anyway? The answer is that that country may start denying you food imports because Russia is mostly cold tundra and steppe. While Ukraine has a lot of arable land. Russia has a lot of fuel, but they don't have as much arable land. Some of it has ethnic fighting problems like Chechnya. That's what this is about. It's about them being a combination of worried and territorially imperialistic, actually. The good stuff. Can we impeach Biden and Harris and have an emergency presidential election? No, I don't believe that we legally can, sadly. Nickel Dime, Ontario's Bill 67 will force public teachers to undergo a CRT review before they can teach. But get this, it's being pushed by clueless conservatives. I'll have to look into that. Tim Roll, if Trump gets reelected, do you think that this would wind down because of how unpredictable he is? Possible. Now, the Russians would be a little bit more reluctant to be too aggressive because they know that Trump doesn't just talk the talk. Robot Trucker, can you give a shout out to Chris Wyatt Africa? Well, shout out to him. By the way, how many people are watching on Rumble right now? Almost 500 people. So again, 2,500 people cross-platform. It's definitely up than from what it was many months ago. YouTube has gotten better, and certainly Rumble is good to begin with regards to live streaming. It's just the mainline videos that are still a problem on YouTube. Anyway, I'm wondering how many subscribers exactly do we have on Rumble? Because we're perilously close to the next level. We need 30 more subscribers on Rumble to hit 82,000. So we're very, very close. Basically, enough people to fill the room where Biden is speaking that would care about what he has to say. And less than 150,000 views to go on Bitchute until the big 50 million mark. That is 50 million with an M. You realize how hard it is to get to that on YouTube, which is 100 times larger as far as the user base? And I'm only the 4th largest on Bitchute with regards to views and subscribers. I'm number 4 now on the site. I was number 1. I was the first at 100K. I've been supplanted by others. And I couldn't be happier because it shows that people with much larger audiences that get in a huge number of people have gone onto the site. People that were larger, like at the time I first got on YouTube, I think I had 200,000 subscribers or something like that. It was a lot smaller of an audience. I mean, it's still large, but and now it's almost 500,000. But now people with much larger audiences are getting aboard, including people that aren't on the so-called right, although I don't consider myself that, including people that aren't even involved with politics. Some of those top channels are more like straight up news analysis. You've got the weird side of YouTube stuff that has migrated elsewhere because they got kicked off YouTube. Gaming, some gaming content, fucking makeup and stuff like that. Rob S. Can I get a shout out to Robert and Emma with a pen clank? Yes. Because you paid me. I will clank a pen briefly. I consider this to be fair trade system. Mr. Wonderful, NATO became obsolete in 1989. I disagree. I think the basic concept of NATO is fine. It's not an aggressive alliance, generally speaking. It just can be. That's a problem. That being said, NATO expanding into Ukraine, if the Ukrainians are truly sovereign, as the Russians, the West agreed, if they're truly sovereign, shouldn't they have the right to join whatever alliance or group they want? Why does Russia have anything to say about it? Unless they consider them a preeminent enemy. They're using the Donbass shit as an excuse to bomb the fuck out of Ukrainians right now because there's no other explanation for the behavior. It's straight up imperialism, and Putin appears to be, in some cases, losing. I like how people will talk about Ukraine being globalistic, they're degenerate. But at the same time, I keep hearing about how they're a bunch of Nazis, so it's okay to kill them. Sounds like Antifa bullshit to me. Amazon, can Genesis do what Nintendo don't? I think that's a 90s reference, actually. Yeah. Yvonne Amari on Twitch has a good comment. Coffee will barter well. Yeah, if you have a really big economic downturn, coffee is a pretty good staple. As long as it's sealed up properly and stored. You want it whole bean. I don't think you'd want to have it ground up beforehand. Maybe some instant coffee. MRE instant coffee apparently lasts 70, 80 years. I had some from the Vietnam conflict from like 1970 or something once. It was actually one of the best cups of coffee that I've ever had. Way smoother, way less acidic than modern coffee. Mr. Wonderful, I disagree, but still respect your opinion. See, there's the hallmark of someone who's intelligent. Mostly you don't get that. Mostly it's you're wrong and therefore you're stupid. Adam M. Did the parties flip platforms? If not, why do you some claim that they did? Thanks for your work, Styx. I'm a regular viewer. Well, the Democrats like to claim that because the Democrats were the party of the Ku Klux Klan, which is where gun control came from. Crookshank decision, 1870s. They don't want to own up to that fact. They're doing the id poll thing. So now they've brought up the mythology that around the Nixon and Goldwater era, the parties flipped platforms, but they didn't. Never happened. Issues change over time and positions on issues change according to who's in the party, etc. The generations, there's paradigm shifts, but they have not done a flip of any sort. Opinionated Junkie, thoughts on Eastern Ukraine being bombed by Ukraine? Regrettable. They justify it by saying that it's terrorist activity. And one man's terrorist, I know, is another man's freedom fighter. Again, though, what I'm saying is that that internal dispute does not justify another country invading you. It doesn't, that doesn't follow logically. Russia's like, oh my God, the Ukrainians are Nazis, but they're also going to join NATO, but they're also bombing these people that we recognize sovereignty of. Why don't you choose one of these different lines to justify your invasion, is my question. Rune Grandback, how do you think Europe will look in 2 years? Probably like it does now, only with higher prices. I don't see any major sea change in Europe that quickly. I think over the future, though, the EU will collapse into various blocks, or at least sub-blocks. It'll be fine. Logan Dietz, wow, Styx is a NATO show. No, and watch my videos on the topic. I'm very critical of NATO, especially in the lead up to what's happening in Ukraine, especially after Crimea. But the fact that NATO and the US government, under Obama and Biden mainly, and others have made terrible mistakes does not justify a war against your neighbor, invading them with convoluted, confusing, and sometimes self-refuting premises. Well, they're a bunch of Nazis, but they're also a bunch of degenerate globalists. Oh, they're going to join NATO, and that's a big threat, even though we just said that NATO is not really a threat and we're willing to work with NATO. It just doesn't make sense, dude. How do you do it? Shout out to Mumu, WeCat, and Weebs. Okay. Zeranks, I think we're looking at ESG fast-tracking us to Sesame credit, and it doesn't look like people are aware of it as they are about CRT. How concerned should we be? Yeah, I think you mean it's like a social credit score system, I think. Yeah, we should be kind of worried, but CRT is a more immediate threat because remember, when generations of kids are being brainwashed, those kids can be controlled in the future and become a much bigger problem. Don't worry so much about the adults. Protect the kids. Dr. Copernicus, there's a big seemingly astroturfed conversations being pushed on a lot of boards about Khazarian Mafia. Thoughts? Seems like another Da Jews thing. Yeah, I mean, but that's not new. That's been happening for what, fucking better part of a decade now. And not all of it's astroturfed. One thing you got to understand in astroturfing, here's an important concept. Just because the idea starts with an astroturf doesn't mean that everyone promulgating it is a shill of some sort. Some of them genuinely believe it. They've been misled or they believe something for some reason. They're not getting paid to post or anything. It's just that the origin is the astroturf. By the way, no more super chats, please, because at some point I got to do other things. Daniel Ashley, you've been annoyingly correct over the years. Thank you for sowing the seeds of doubt for BS like QAnon. Yes, remember that I was against that LARP. It was a distraction. It was guesswork like Nostradamus. And there were people that are still carried away with it today. There are still people that believe that horse shit. And a lot of that is astroturfing at this point. I think intelligent people said, oh, I guess that wasn't real because it never came true. And I waited 2-3 years, but Trump can make a comeback. He doesn't need some magical deep state operative that's flipped and now stopped glowing in the dark and is sitting with 5 computers. They're doing the elite Haxor thing. Yeah, populism does not need conspiracy theories to promote itself because it is self-evidently better. Transylvania 90, NATO is a bureaucratic and divided, but there's a reason why Eastern European nations wanted in. They well remember Stalin's crimes in the 40s and see Putin's recent Ukraine-Georgia actions as the same. And while I would say they're not exactly the same, they are similar enough, the optics are, that I don't... Can you blame, like, Poland for rearming? Can you blame the Baltic states for being worried? They don't want that shit again. Brett Kester. Good morning from Utah. In regards to the algorithm woes, have you considered cheesing features like shorts and polls to get around channel suppression and reach a wider audience? The Spiffing Brit has some good videos on it. Yeah, I did a short a while ago, and I've done some polling and shit like that. It's just like, I'm not willing to bother, though. I'm getting so much growth on new tech now, I just don't care about YouTube's algorithmic demotion of me as much anymore. I use YouTube partially now to promote my other presences. It's sad that I have to do that. They should know better. Seeing sites. Should the U.S. give asylum to Tamara Lich and other Canadian freedom fighters? Yes. Yes, asylum should be granted to people in the developed world with similar cultures that are fighting for freedom. Patrick Carey, what I am scared of is the Russian wheat and fertilizer exports. Russia is the world leader fertilizer and raw material for fertilizer chemicals. Yeah, but I mean, you can compost, make some bone meal and shit. There are other sources of fertility. You don't need Russia for that, any more than we need China for all the cheap crap people think that they need. Mr. Wonderful, how much of the appraised $20 billion flooding into Ukraine will end up in the leadership's pockets? Zelensky has confirmed offshore accounts. It's impossible to tell. I think in the immediate sense, the money is probably going to its proper use. If it continues to be sent as war, hopefully winds down, maybe the Russians are withdrawing, yeah, some of it will get squirreled away. End up in Cyprus or the Caymans. Zeranks, I hear that. The thing is, Bank of America and Chase are already abiding the environmental, social, and governance. Harvard has an article. I'll DM you. Thank you for DMing that to me, yes. By the way, again, please, no more super chats. We're running up on 50 minutes here. Roscoe P. Coltrane, Q is just a gay letter. Yeah, it's a happy letter. It's round, but it has, it's not an O. It's quite happy. But QAnon is stupid. Over on Rumble, we have Senile Zeke. Biden owned by Ukraine, Russia, and China. This is all bullshit. I don't think he's owned by anyone but the powerful U.S. magnates. The problem is they, in turn, are invested mainly in China. And some of them do have Russian ties. Of course. There's a reason why we've got a struggle right now going on to give planes to the Ukrainians. There's a reason why the Russians, who are worried about that, I think, are saying, well, we might attack those convoys that are delivering shit to the Ukrainians. If they enter Ukraine, they're a legitimate target. It'd be funny if they started off loading them on the other side of the border, like a mile within Poland. They say, hey, the Ukrainians can come in and get their shit, and then they can go through. That'd be interesting. You think Putin would be willing to bomb something a mile within Poland? I dare say probably not. Do it through the Finns too. The Russian fears the Finn. I think Finland and Poland in that order are who they're really concerned about having to spar with. I don't think that they care about the US right now because they realize that Biden's out to lunch. Jen Suckett on Rumble. Hello from a cheap bitch. And Amasong on YouTube. Q is a furry letter. Just look at that tail. Yeah. It's an interesting world that people still believe in the QAnon thing so many years on. People were warned. I warned them. Others warned them. Just go knock on doors and vote and shit. Don't count on some non-existent CIA agent to solve the problem for you. Sebastian Monroe, this is the last one. How long till Puke Burp calls to repeal the 19th Amendment after telling actual women to be quiet? Vaush becomes the Nat Sock gifted now. LMAO. Yes, he actually is very pleased, I'm sure, right now because he got attention from J.K. Rowling after Puke burping on Twitter and basically saying women should shut up. It's amazing because I think that if I were to say something like that, I would get banned. Interesting how people who are completely astroturfed by the British government don't get banned by these things. It's almost like it's a setup, like, I set up the pins and you fire the ball, so to speak. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Forum, Quebec syrup is better than Vermont. Only if Vermonters conquest Quebec, then that syrup will be just as good. Until then, we can't use our Vermonter magic to make your syrup perfect. It'll be good. It'll be passable. You'd like it on your pancakes or your waffles or your crepes or whatever, French toast especially, but it will never be Vermont maple syrup. You heretic. I hate you. Not really. I'm just being hyperbolic. Don't challenge Vermont syrup. Anyway, I'm going to be going off here. I had fun running about 52 minutes here. Over the next week, there may be an extra live stream because, of course, at any given moment, Biden could say crazy shit. I will try to do a few over this and next month, a few extra live streams because I have fun doing them. It's just the time zones really are a problem. That's about all. Peace out.